Okay, so some of you realise that it doesn't take much for me to be photographed with Doctor Who stuff. This is 2 years ago at the Doctor Who exhibition in London. That's me with my son on the left. She pulled it out of the box. She said, "What do you think I am, 16? It went straight back to the shop. She didn't even let me take a photo of her wearing it. Anyway, so I told this story on air, and one of my listeners put 2 and 2 together. The little black dress story, my love of Doctor Who, and see what you think of this suggestion for what I should buy Nikki for Christmas. I'll take that as a yes. This is my first school photograph. I got this out recently because we broadcast from Ipswich State High School and we had to get out our first school photograph, and then someone at 612 noticed the uncanny similarity love of sound and audio and radio. So this photograph was taken, I'm not sure which train station, but it's on the West Coast line in England, the Euston to Glasgow line. That's a Class 87 electric locomotive. And I'm recording the sound of a train, and I've asked my mum to take the photograph, but I'm wanting to record the sound of the train because for me it's all about sound. Now, unfortunately, what I learnt on this day is that if you run along a platform recording, all you get is boom, 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 boom. But I love that, and I don't know whether my mum deliberately captured me in the photo, but I love that she did. We moved, as I said, to Australia, and I went to Manly State School in grade 6 and grade 7. That was me in grade 6, and this is my best friend in grade 6. You know him, Kyle Sandilands. This is in the window at the ABC shop at Carindale in 2004, and there's Michael Palin, Mark's Christmas. A couple of the other faces there, that's Terry Begley on the left, one of our reporters, and on the right is Tim Cox, who's on air between 3 and 6 in the afternoon. This is a photo taken in our theatre at the ABC at South Bank, and unless you come for a tour, or unless you come to be in the audience of one of our TV or radio shows or the orchestra concerts, you don't see this from outside. There's the seating. We can seat up to 400 people in the theatre, and for me, this is why the ABC is perfectly positioned there at South Bank. You now have the conservatorium, the ABC, QPAC, the library, Goma, the museum, the art gallery, one after another, all of these arts destinations together at South Bank there. They decided to broadcast the 4BC breakfast show from outside my studio. So this is QPAC, here's the ABC building, this is my studio here, here's the 4BC sausage band, the 4BC broadcast band was just over here. But that's okay, because this is my producer getting us sausages. 4BC fed our entire newsroom that morning. A nude calendar for 2014. It was from her retirement village. My son happened to be at the talk that day. This is the only time this year that he's been at a talk, but this is in the September school holidays. There is Jack and Jack's friend Carl doing this. She gave me this retirement village nude calendar 2014, and I still remember Jack looking at this thing in the car on the way back to home, going, "Why, Dad, why did they give you this elderly porn?" Anyway, so I flicked through the calendar while I was there, and I got to September, and I'm going to show you September. This is September. And I said to the woman who was showing me the calendar, I said, "That is Hugh Cornish. That's the first man on television in Queensland." She said, "Yes, it is." Robert McLean is one of my favourite listeners. He never wastes a drop of ink nor a square of paper. I played a new Rolling Stones song, and he wrote, "Dear Spencer, no Stones. That song is terrible for Robert." And I mentioned this to one of my colleagues, Kelly Higgins-Devine, and she said, "Oh yes, I got a letter from him too. Dear Kelly, if your show were a pair of knickers, I would shove it in the washing machine." Robert. We get letters and we get emails and we get tweets and Facebook comments and phone calls, of course, but we get a lot of text messages as well. This was during the floods earlier this year. Condamine still getting higher. May have to ejaculate. Which wouldn't have helped, obviously. This woman, her name is Gemma, she's a teacher at Shayla Park State School, and 5 years ago, she said to me she wanted to show her students what a million of something looked like. You might see 1 million grains of sand or 1 million blades of grass, but where does it start and where does it stop? So she came up with the idea of collecting 1 million of the little plastic ties from the top of bread, loaves of bread, or bread tags. She came to us when she needed about 800,000 more. She learned what 1 million bread tags looked like. Every cupboard at this school, and not only that, they were hanging from the rafters of the classrooms. Now, on the last day of school that year, we were to go along and do an outside broadcast from the school. This is an untold story you're about to hear. We have at the ABC, I'm sure other organisations have this as well, what we call the courier mail test. In other words, if something could be perceived to be dodgy, how's this going to look on the front page of the courier mail? Or the Senate inquiry test, how's this going to look when Mark Scott has to front the Senate inquiry? So we were to go to this school on the last day of school and broadcast to celebrate the 1 million bread tags. Only we were concerned that they weren't going to make the 1 million. So I got permission for the ABC to buy 300,000 brand new plastic bread tags, which came in boxes about this high and about this wide, very tightly coiled bright red plastic bread tags. And we took them to the school. When we arrived, I got out of the car first and the teacher bounded up to me. She said, "This is great news, Spencer. All of the collection points have come in. We've got the 1 million. We've got the 1 million. Dennis, we won't need the big boxes. Dennis, leave the big boxes in the van." Okay. So we left the boxes in the van, we did the program. It was fantastic. The school celebrated. They poured all the bread tags out. The TV cameras were there. This was very exciting. Then we got back to the office and put the unused bread tags next to our desks in the breakfast area and said, what are we going to do with these? So we rang the company. They would not take them back. Okay, fine. So I came up with this idea. Now we had been giving away pencils that we called Spencils. Spencer pencils, Spencils. And you've got to be creative in these situations. Sometimes you come up with ideas that are a little bit silly, a little bit egotistical even. So I said, how about we make them prizes? I will initial and number every bread tag. And we'll call them Spencer tags. Spags. We'll call them Spags, I said. And my producer said, keep going. Explain. How does this work? I said, well, you win a spag. You can't buy them anywhere. And you put your spag in your wallet. And when you go to a coffee shop and you've sat down with your coffee and your cake, you take your spag out, you put it on the edge of the table. And you look around the coffee shop and you'll be able to see where all the other ABC listeners are. Yeah, well, you know, it didn't happen, obviously. Otherwise you'd all have spags. So at the beginning of the next year, we go on Christmas holidays, we come back for the next year, and sure enough, big boxes are still sitting there. A charity on Brisbane's north side that takes loaves of bread, splits them in two, and gives half loaves to families in need, rang us and said, do you have any of the bread tags left? Do we have bread tags? They got 300,000 brand new bread tags, which they're probably still using. And I am happy for that story to be on the front page of the Courier Mail or at the Senate inquiry. And for the record, I believe 300,000 bread tags cost us about $350. But not a huge amount of money, but one has to be very careful with the taxpayer's dollar. And here's the final thing I want to show you. I love this. This is another untold story. You won't hear this anywhere else. This, you'll recognise and remember the sign. This is the big 9-metre high Australia sign that was out the front of the Australian Pavilion at Expo. This is a photo of it in the Museum of Brisbane. Now the Museum of Brisbane decided this was the best photo they had of that sign. Problem was, this bloke here with the pink drawstring pants, just before this photo was taken, he pulled his pants down around his ankles. Even so, the museum decided it was the best photo they had. So in what I think is probably the best photoshopping that I have ever seen, his pants are brought up so that it looks like he's actually wearing his pants. Now I can tell, you're a cynical lot. You don't believe it. You want to see the original photo. You won't find this original photo at the Museum of Brisbane. This took some hunting out, but you're about to see it. We may have to cover the video camera for this next bit. Here we go. There it is. So that's the original photo, and there it is side by side. And am I right or am I right that is an exceptional bit of photoshopping by someone at the Museum of Brisbane? Thank you very much for having me along today.